If you asked me a few years ago what stress looked like, I probably would have pointed to deadlines, exams, or the occasional bad day or bad week. But recently, stress has stopped behaving like an occasional visitor in my life and started behaving more like a permanent roommate. Not the helpful one, but a one that leaves a mess everywhere and refuses to pay rent. The night before my final math exam, I spent nearly an hour staring at the same page of notes. By the end of it, I couldn't remember a single formula. The numbers were right in front of me, but none of them were sticking. I would read something, look away for a second, and it would completely disappear from my mind. My thoughts kept drifting to everything else I still had to do. Other assignments, upcoming tests, unfinished work. My shoulders were tense, and my head felt heavy. And even though I had slept well the night before, I felt tired. At first, I told myself it was just exam nerves. Every student gets stressed before a test, that's normal. But something about it didn't feel right, and that is what brings me here today. Because when I really started paying attention, I realized that stress wasn't just appearing the night before exams. It followed me into class, into study sessions, even into moments that were supposed to feel normal. It affected my energy, my focus, and even my mood. That was the moment I realized something important. The stress wasn't about one exam. Somewhere along the way, it had quietly stopped being a warning sign and started feeling more like a lifestyle. And once I noticed it, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Because imagine walking around all day with a backpack filled with bricks. At first, you'll manage it. You might even forget it's there for a while. But eventually, every step becomes harder. Even simple things start to feel overwhelming. It was like when someone points out a crack in the wall, which you might have walked past every day without seeing it. But once you do, suddenly you'll start to notice it everywhere. And for a long time, I believed that this was just how things were supposed to be. I told myself that being constantly exhausted meant that I was working hard. That feeling overwhelmed meant that I cared about my future. In a strange way, exhaustion started to feel like proof of dedication. But the more I thought about it, the less that belief made sense. Because somewhere along the way, our brains aren't designed to stay under constant pressure. When stress sticks around for too long, our body releases a hormone called cortisol, which is meant to help us in short bursts of pressure. But when it stays high for too long, it starts interfering with focus, memory, and clear thinking. And suddenly, the more you try to concentrate, the harder it becomes. Studies show that long-term stress can make it difficult to focus, process information, and even remember simple things. So, in other words, stress doesn't just affect how we feel emotionally, it changes how clearly we can think. That's all mine. For a long time, I thought the problem came from stress itself. I believed that the goal was to get rid of it completely. But over time, I realized something different. I treated every moment of pressure like an emergency. Every assignment felt urgent. Every test felt like everything depended on it. And when you live in that constant state of urgency, your mind never really gets a chance to recover. So the change didn't come from eliminating stress, because that's impossible, especially as a student. The change came from learning how to respond to it differently. So instead of ignoring stress or pushing through it, I started paying attention to it. Sometimes it was telling me that I needed to prepare better. Sometimes it was telling me that I needed to take a break. Sometimes it was simply telling me to slow down. That shift didn't remove the challenges of school, but it completely changed how I moved through them. If you're a parent here tonight, think about the last time you asked your child how school was. Many students tend to answer with one word: fine. Fine. But behind that one word can be pressure that students don't fully know how to explain. Students don't just need high expectations. They need environments where asking for help is seen as strength, not weakness. Because behind every assignment and every exam, there is pressure the students don't fully know how to explain. Looking back, the night before my final math exam wasn't really about math at all. It was when I realized something simple. That productivity and well-being do go together. So if there's one idea that I would love to leave with you tonight, it's this. Sometimes the most productive thing that you can do is not pushing harder. Sometimes the real change comes from knowing when to pause. Look at that. I was so stressed that I didn't finish in time. Thank you.